I stand here at historic Fort Charlotte, a place that for our country is not only a symbol of citizen protection, but also a symbol of citizen freedom. The motto here once was Expulsus Piratus, Restituta Commercia, which stood for Pirates Expelled, Trade Restored. And it is now, in our well-earned independence, forward, upward, onward, together. And in that right of our independence, it is incumbent upon us, as citizens of this country and citizens of the world, to ask the questions that need to be asked and to pursue the answers that carry forth truth and justice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Citizens Review, the forum that will provide for us a place by which to pursue those answers and to do it with a sense of independence, a sense of accuracy, and a sense of boldness. I'm Aaron Ferguson, and this is Citizens Review. Votes have been cast, the ballots have been counted, and the people of Elizabeth have spoken. But most important in that is the voice of silence. Some 1,800 Bahamians declared to the PLP and the FNM, to hell with your election, as nearly 40% of the electorate in Elizabeth decided to answer the question that we all have to ask ourselves before voting in an election. Who is the lesser of the two evils? The people of Elizabeth answered that question by saying, evil hath no lesser. This is the highest rate of voter apathy and disinterest that I've seen in the political process in the history of the Bahamas. I'm reminded of a Bible story known to all of us, including the very little children, of Daniel in the lion's den. It would seem that the Bahamian people are like Daniel. We've been placed in the lion's den, staring into the ferocious jaws of an economic recession, the sharp claws of a failed education system, and the terrifying face of crime and murder that has enveloped the country. Like Daniel, the people of Elizabeth have demonstrated that the only choice to turn to, as we all sit in the lion's den, is your God. For we will not find favor with the Nebuchadnezzars of the PLP and the FNM establishment, who have thrown us into the lion's den in the first place. Again, I suggest to you that the question that we all have to ask ourselves before we vote in an election is, who is the lesser of the two evils? Elizabeth says, evil hath no lesser. We are the citizens. Let's run the review. We have with us today Opposition Member of Parliament from Fox Hill, Mr. Fred Mitchell, and the Deputy Chairman of the FNM, Anthony Musgrove, the Senator. Gentlemen, evil hath no lesser, and you two represent the two sides of the lesser of two evils. What do you say to that? 1,800 people didn't vote.
Well, obviously it shows that there was a concern with the number of persons on the registry initially, and there was a claim that we were unable to locate many of them. Well, it proves that the system has a way of correcting itself, and that is what we saw. Those who won the register and who were not entitled to vote heard the message, and they did not show. Also, you have segments of the Elizabeth constituency where you have apartment dwellers, and persons would have moved on. You would have persons replacing them. Obviously, there is a time for us to take our registration process into the modern era, and we need to find innovative ways to register people. One of the ways that we can do it, and this is the sort of debate we should have as a people, why not when persons get their driver's license? It is automatically fed into the registration department. The persons who are employed in that department can then verify that the information is authentic and legit. And when persons die, the same thing can happen.
Yeah,
you can then have it into the system.
Well, why would you suggest this to you represent the government party? Tell Mr. Ingram to put the system in. It don't make sense telling us on this show that licenses should mean more. I've been to many places in the Bahamas where they say my license means nothing. Passport is everything, so I have to carry my passport, which is a sensitive document, in my back pocket. why suggest that and not just say, Mr. Ingram, we have an election, we're about to call it. If we can't change the register, at least put this in place.
Well, obviously, because of what has taken place, and we see that there are 1,800 persons, which is being distorted to say that there are 40% of the eligible voters not voting, what this proves now is that obviously the system has to be fixed.
Agreed.
And by having this show and having this conversation, it means that you have persons within the political organizations who are having the sort of discussions that we need. And I'm almost certain that you will see some sort of reform beginning to take place or between now and when the next general election is held.
Mr. Mitchell, the PLP was in government for 5 years. This wasn't addressed. The registers are still just as flawed as we thought they were before. What happened?
Well, I'm not as cynical as you are.
Okay.
If I can
Well,
accuse you of being cynical.
I only represent the citizens. We have a register in place, people on it dead.
Yes. Well, some people, dead people will be
Okay.
on the register.
Okay.
I mean, there are going to be some people who die. I mean, so obviously there's a case for looking at the issue of reform. I'm not sure what the 1,800 actually means, and I wouldn't jump to the conclusion that it means people are apathetic. I think you have to actually analyze who these 1,800 people are, or and what they were doing on the particular day.
Okay.
It
Well,
may
I
be,
mean,
of course, that we were the politicians were all hyped up about elections, and the people themselves are simply not hyped up about it. It isn't important to their lives.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's say 1,000 of the persons are alive, live in Elizabeth, and the other 800 account for people who've died. They account for people who've moved out. They account for people who are out of the country, gone someplace else. Where are the 1,000?
Well, look,
Is that apathy?
I'm not saying that you're not correct. I'm
Okay.
saying that you have to have a proper analysis of it. And secondly, I'm saying that, yes, there will be voter apathy, and you want to examine those issues because you don't want it to get like it is in the United States and other developed
that would be
countries where
ridiculous.
50% or less are actually showing up at the polls.
But does
So
this
we have
suggest
to-
that
we
we're
have to look
headed
at
in
the
that
messages.
direction?
I don't know. You see, I don't think you can take this just one example and say extrapolate this onto the general election. What
Okay.
I find is people complain a lot. You know, I mean, I said this last week when I was on the program. You know, when people were saying about the two political parties. You know, this business of a pox on both your houses, and of course that message didn't resonate with the voters of Elizabeth either, because
No.
the people voted FNM or PLP. And
Yeah.
I said then, you know, why complain about the air when that's all there is to breathe? It's the PLP or the
Well,
FNM.
which of you guys stand to gain when 1,800 people don't show up for whatever reason? You think the FNM gains, the PLP gain? Does the PLP's base get damaged by that, or the FNM swing voters?
I think if you just deal with it statistically, it'll
Yeah.
probably come out exactly as the exactly as the election came out.
One vote.
Yeah, I think it's split down the middle.
Let me ask you a question. We've seen this pattern start to establish where elections are getting closer and closer. In 2007, we saw the FNM and PLP were they were so close in seats that the PLP thought that there was even reason to carry things to the election court to try to switch the government. Why is this happening? Is it because people are just deadlocked? Is it because only the base are voting and the independents that we talk about that make the election cause someone to win or lose? Is it because they're not even voting at all and just the bases are evening themselves out? What do you think, Musgrove?
But my take on it is that as far as we are concerned, there are two political parties. You know, when you have political pundits saying that 40% go one way and 40% go another way. And when you look at it, those who are in between, they are a small segment of the voting population in actuality when you compare when you look at the overall picture. When you have a choice between the Free National Movement and the Progressive Liberal Party, and as a good member said, that is all that we have. Persons will either align themselves with the PLP or with the FNM, and you will always have this closeness. If you look at in most of the constituencies nationwide in the last election, most persons voted, most members of parliament were elected by less than 100.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is, is your party adversely affected by people not showing up? Is the PLP adversely affected by people not showing up?
Well, I think
What do you think?
I think that opposition parties prefer for there to be a high voter turnout because
Okay.
it means that if there is more energy behind the campaign that
Yeah.
it would normally go against the government, right? So, of course, what's important for us as a political party, of course, is to look at the messaging, and I'm sure the FNM will do the same. We're concerned, of course, about the conduct of the Prime Minister and the way he fights elections, and
Yeah.
this, which in our view causes greater division than there needs to be in the society. I mean, I was really concerned. I
But
was looking-
what's different about his strategy than the PLP strategy? I mean, everybody throwing rallies, everybody knocking at everyone's doors, swarming the constituency with lots of people.
It's this business of all or nothing. You know, there's no. We try to say, look, at some point there's got to be a consensus in the society about the direction we go in. At
Okay.
least that's what our leader tries to say.
Okay.
And this sort of reaching across the aisle.
You would suggest that Perry Christie, as a leader of the PLP, reaches across the aisle?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't know
Absolutely.
about
As a
that. I
matter
don't
of
know
fact,
that the
that's
parliamentary
no.
votes suggest that, because I think when
It's
the
clear.
PLP
It's
proposes
clear.
something,
because
as
that's what
Parliament-
he's suffering. That's what he suffered from in the 2007 election, even with his base.
Yeah,
Saying, why are you worrying about these
Okay,
fellows on the other
but
side?
the only way we can tangibly outline that is by looking at the votes in Parliament. And when the PLP proposes something, all of the PLP vote for it, all of the FNM vote against it.
No, that's
when
not
the
so.
FNM
That's
proposes
not so.
something, the
That's
PLP,
not so.
the FNM vote for it, and all the PLP
No, you
vote
can
against
count
it.
on one hand the votes the PLP has opposed, and since 2007.
Yeah,
That's
but
not
those
true.
are issues that everybody agree on. Healthcare. Do we give people prescription drugs?
No,
Of
no,
course,
most,
we give
most
them
legislation
prescription
is
drugs.
supported by the opposition.
The point you were raising about the way the Prime Minister leader of the Free National Movement gets his message out. I think, in this election, I think it was very unfair when persons said that there was the intimidating, the fear factor that was displayed. The difficulty is, and that is why, back to what we were saying with the low voter turnout, which could have been a possibility, the point he was making was that, there is no need for persons who are not eligible to vote in the constituency because there are consequences. And as such, the Progressive Liberal Party took that to mean that, there was this fear factor that he's forcing people to support the Free National Movement. And I think that, in terms of messaging, the message of the Prime Minister is very clear. It is just that persons are so used to politicians dilly-dallying, and when you have someone who can actually say what has to be done, what should be done, and you're doing it in the confines of the law,
Well, let's-
then
No,
you
no,
have the
no,
intimidating
no,
factor that is being brought forward.
Here you have the Prime Minister getting up on a public platform, and he's essentially saying, look, if you do this, you're going to get locked up. I mean, everybody takes that as a threat.
If you
Everybody
do
knows
what, you're
that's
going to
a
get
threat.
locked up.
Well, I mean, any list of things that he was going on.
Well,
about.
I mean,
But there is
those
a
are-
law,
those are all
there is a
things
law, and you
that
should abide by
were
the
against
Well, that's
law,
fine,
right?
but
Exactly.
people know what the law is. They know what the law is.
I don't know that
They
you
know
could
what the
say
law is.
that-
You don't
well,
need the Prime Minister
Rodney
pounding
Marcus
on the
says that the
table
PLP and
about
the
the
FNM
issue.
were both breaking the law as they were too close to the election ballot rooms. They were too close to the polling divisions, not 100 yards away. The PLP and the FNM was broken the law. I don't think everyone.
No, you
It tends
can't.
to
Okay,
and
it
the
was
supporters are way
suggested-
off.
It
It was
Yes,
suggested
yes,
that
man.
both
Please,
PLP and FNM broke the law.
No.
All I'm suggesting is, how do you? I can't say that people know all of the election law, but we'll pick this up and we come right back, ladies and gentlemen, right after this break. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Citizens Review. We're here having a heated discussion with opposition MP, Mr. Fred Mitchell, and the Senator, Anthony Musgrove, the Deputy Chairman of the FNM. Gentlemen, my question to you, campaign strategy. It is claimed, Senator Musgrove, that the FNM used government funds, used government power, used the government to win this election. Now, let me preface that. There were some 150 to 200 jobs given out in the constituency itself. Now, that suggests something. If it don't say nothing definitive, it suggests something. And if 1,800 of those almost 5,000 persons didn't vote, then we are left with almost 3,000 people, which means that the government was able to hire close to 10% of the constituents of Elizabeth. 10%. That's high.
Well, I don't know where you would have gotten your statistics from, but I can tell you this. From 2009, the government announced that there was a package of stimulus packages that would have been introduced.
Okay.
And you would have had the BEC relief program, you would have had the increase of social services.
Okay.
2,500 jobs were a part of that.
Okay.
We all know that. There's nothing sinister
But
to
hold
that.
on now. I went.
Out of that,
I was
hold on.
at the F&M.
Out of that,
Go ahead.
the good member of parliament here got some jobs
Yeah,
that he was
don't
responsible.
get me in yours
that he
problem.
was
Don't get
that
me in your
he
problem.
was
You have
given-
to fight this on your
no,
own,
that
own
he
steam.
was responsible to give to his constituents, like all
How
members
many
of parliament.
jobs did you get for your
Those-
constituents?
Those are government jobs, 10.
10
Right.
jobs.
And they
Okay.
put me in
And I don't,
plenty of trouble
I don't know
because
where the
they're in short
statistics came from.
supply.
Okay.
No, but the difficulty is this, and this is where misinformation is creating the issue that gave rise to the point that you
Okay,
raised.
give us some information.
This is it.
Give it to us quickly.
Out of the 2,500 jobs, the difficulty is Elizabeth is a part of the Bahamas.
Okay.
They have jobs to be given out.
Yeah, but how
The
come
eyes-
all their
no,
jobs
no, no,
get
no,
out?
no,
There
no,
were
no,
10.
no, no.
He
no.
says
The-
150.
I don't know where you
There
got the
was almost
150 from.
200.
Yeah.
The eyes of the nation has been on Elizabeth.
Okay.
And that is why people would have seen persons out of Elizabeth, like every other constituency, that Bahamians from all walks of life would have been entitled to. And I think that when you give misinformation, where you get 150 persons, I don't know where you got it from, but because we were looking at Elizabeth for the last couple of days,
Okay.
you have persons talk about the improvement to the infrastructure in Elizabeth.
Uh-huh.
Well, Elizabeth did not have a
That-
voice.
That's a nice
that's-
euphemism.
No. Elizabeth did not
Paving
have a
every
voice.
road.
No,
Paving
Elizabeth
every road.
did not have a voice in
Every
Parliament.
road.
And
Yes, they
as
had
a
a voice.
result, it did not have a voice.
Yes, they had a voice.
That is what you guys said.
Hold on,
They had a
give,
voice.
give him a second to finish.
Elizabeth did not have a voice. Because we went in there in this by-election, we won the ground, we were fortunate to see what the member of parliament should have seen. And that is why we sent a man like Dwayne Sands to go in there, and through campaigning, we realized that there were a lot of roads that were neglected. We paved it. The same way we paved the road on Cable Beach, the same way we paved the road in Farm Road. We are continuing our stimulus package, and that is to improve infrastructure
Here's my
and
question.
create jobs.
Here's my
That's
question.
less than fine.
Would you
That's less than
suggest that it could at least be seen as a bit odd that right around the time of the by-election, all of a sudden, and I went to the office of Carl Bethel and Dwayne Sands on Prince Charles, I saw the temporary job applications being passed.
And you would have
out.
seen it in every
Hold on,
member of
wait,
parliament
wait.
office.
That's fine.
Carl Bethel is a member of
somehow,
parliament.
Somehow Mr. Mitchell was only able to get 10 jobs. I saw stacks of papers. Mr. Carl Bethel, before meeting with me, came downstairs and said, temporary job applications, I need them. It don't seem strange to you that all them jobs give out right before the election, man?
No, it's
Something going
the
on
jobs
there?
provision
It may
was
not
made
be
from
direct,
last
but
year.
something wrong there.
Well, it just so happened that persons
And then-
would have, because Carl Bethel is the chairman, and if persons walk into his office and would have given him, in his capacity as chairman, to pass on to the other member of parliaments that are affiliated with the F&M, don't blame Carl Bethel, don't blame the F&M for that.
All right, Nico
It's
Grant.
just convenient.
Nico Grant has a press conference.
Yes, sir.
All of a sudden, all of the roads and everything in Elizabeth needs to be named. So everybody got to walk
You know,
the
before
streets.
they're named, they have to be paved.
Yeah.
And I tried to get some PLPs because their road remained unpaved. You see, the residents of Elizabeth have been told that private roads could not be paved. You talk about what the Member of Parliament wanted to do. And he had been told that these roads were private roads and could not be paved. All of a sudden, all the private roads can be paved, except a home where a road where a set of PLPs live, they can't get their road paved. So I called
Well,
one of the public officials. I said, look, man, I know I'm on the other side, but man, for God's sake, see if you could pave the
Now,
road.
see,
for
now,
the-
now, see you
know?
saying that, and there's
See
nothing
if you
to
could-
verify that. So
Okay,
See if you could pave the
Let's-
road.
let's
I
not
can
harp
tell,
on
I
this.
can tell you a
Pave the
story that I
road.
know
Pave the
about
road.
this and
Let's-
that, but
okay,
that's not
let's not
verifiable.
harp on
so-
this.
Story the leader,
Let's get to the
leader
next
tells us
issue.
about the lights, man.
Let's get to the
You know?
next issue. You two have leaders of both parties that are domineering figures. Whether Mr. Christie likes it or not, in my opinion, he's just as domineering in the PLP as Mr. Ingram is in the F&M. Was this election for the candidates or was this election for the leaders? I ask that question because people in the Bahamas have a concern. Mr. Ingram put everything he could, whether or not it was government support, behind Dr. Dwayne Sands. Mr. Christie went all out. People say the PLP was broke, but they had money in this election, Mr. Mitchell. Who was this about? Because Ryan Pinder didn't have enough money to fund the election the way it was funded. Neither did now, I don't know, Dr. Dwayne Sands may have the money. But what's going on here? What's the backstory? Is this for the leaders? Is this Perry Christie's cry to stay the leader of the PLP? And is this Mr. Ingram's cry to run another referendum on the Bahamian people to see where they are?
No, I would argue that we didn't fight a campaign based on leaders at all. I mean, you would not say, for example, going into Elizabeth, as I said jokingly to many of the residents there, I see Mr. Ingram is running in Elizabeth because there's posters everywhere.
Yeah, but Mr. Christie's posters accompany
yeah,
Mr.
but not
Ingram's
fine.
posters.
But not to the extent that this one. I mean,
don't
these
know.
giant
Yes,
posters.
I don't know.
No,
No.
we didn't
Before
fight
you-
that campaign. This was a campaign for us, Ryan Pinder against Dwayne Sands, not Perry Christie against Hubert Ingram. I'm afraid.
Yeah,
I said
you can't
at a
argue-
rally.
1 second. You can't argue with the fact that Mr. Christie would have problems as leader if this by-election was lost.
Well, I'm not sure that necessarily follows because I don't know what the connection is between the two.
Well, he's the leader of the party. If the party is weakened by
Yeah,
not
but
winning the by-election in a seat that has been PLP for the last 10 years,
The party is not weakened by the result in the election. As a matter of
must
fact,
be.
the party is energized by what has happened in this by-election because here you have a juggernaut that comes in, a steamroller, in fact, that's been blocked.
okay.
That's what
Must
happened.
go.
My take on it is, I said at a rally that we had, initially, this by-election should have been about the candidates. And early in the game, you saw posters plastered all over the lampposts, still the right man for the job. And as you went through, we
Yeah,
then
Mr.
realized...
Ingram was right next there.
No. We then realized that the PLP wanted to make this a referendum on leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why we had to up the ante and we
No, wait a
decided...
minute.
No, sir.
Wait a
The
minute.
PLP made
Listen,
it a referendum.
I beg to
Leadership.
differ.
The PLP
I
did.
never,
Hold on.
never,
The PLP
never,
did.
You
never,
can't come on
never,
citizens
never,
and
never,
tell me
never,
that
never,
the
never.
PLP
The PLP
made
did.
the race about
Absolutely.
the leader before the
PLP
FNM.
No, the PLP
There
did.
is one man in the
Absolutely
FNM
not.
that
The
runs
PLP
the
did.
FNM.
Absolutely not.
I don't think so.
I don't-
Absolutely not.
I can't
I don't-
swallow that.
I don't know.
Man, look here.
I don't-
Stop that
you get
foolishness.
this myth.
Stop that,
See,
man.
you all have propelled this myth so much,
no,
saying
no,
that
no,
there's
no.
one man
Ingram
who
propels that myth.
runs the FNM.
And
There's no one man
The
that runs the
FNM,
FNM.
the FNM
We are
would
a
have
party
been
of
challenged to win in
right-minded
2007 without Mr. Ingram.
people. Say that again.
The FNM would have been challenged to win in 2007 without Mr. Ingram.
And that's based on...
That's based on the fact that Mr. Ingram carried the party. Everybody in the Bahamas
Mr.
knows
Ingram
it.
is a consummate leader. He
There's
is
two
the
things.
ideal leader.
There's two things that we know about the PLP and the FNM.
Yes, sir.
The PLP have a leader that's perceived as weak, and the FNM have the leader that's perceived as strong, based on our understandings that man is man because he stand up and say he's man.
And that is why he is leader today, and that is
So-
why
so-
he assisted us in winning the elections.
No, but it
you know
comes
what?
back.
But
That comes
do not-
back to
but
the
if
point
that
I
is
was
your
making at the
strength,
start.
one man
That's
show.
the point
That
I
is
was
your
making at the
strength.
start about the way
Then the
these
leader is your
elections are conducted.
your vote.
Yeah, I didn't know
The leader is your
We did
strategy,
not make
not the
it.
PLP's.
We did not make it. The problem is the PLP made it.
No,
and at
sir.
the end of
No,
the day,
sir.
we have
No,
the
sir.
better leader.
No,
and
sir.
that is why.
No,
I don't
no,
like
no,
no
no.
argument
No,
for
no,
the
no, I'm
PLP.
telling you.
But I ain't gonna let no
1,000 times.
FNM tell
I'm telling
me
you.
that Hubert Ingram's
Never.
strategy
Never.
was not vote for Hubert
No,
Ingram.
no. It was vote for Dwayne Sands.
Absolutely.
It was
I
vote
don't
for
know
Dwayne
about
Sands.
that. I don't know about that. But anyway, I figured out how to get economic stimulus in a constituency.
Have a
Mr. Mitchell,
by-election.
have a by-election. You get
Put-
200
and
people
change,
jobs.
change the spelling of buy from B-Y-E to B-U-Y.
Well, now hold on, wait a minute. The PLP paid for the
Using
election just
government's-
as well as the FNM.
No, sir.
The PLP just didn't have the government power.
No, sir.
They just
No,
didn't have
sir.
the government
No,
power
sir.
to pay.
The lady says for 38 years she's been trying to get light.
No,
right?
the-
Who's this
the
lady?
fellow-
Who
Phone call.
is this
No,
lady?
I'm not calling her
Who's
name.
this
You know, I
lady?
want to save her.
Because
I
I
want
get-
to save her.
the fellow
says,
called
at
it,
midnight, she says, "Look, man."
I get
The
like-
neighbor says, "Come outside, man. BEC putting up the lights."
But I can hold on. I can tell you a similar story. In campaigning in polling division number 7, where we were able to reverse the results that were based on last election, a young girl came up to me. She said to me, "Explain this to me. The same people who are campaigning today for Ryan Pinder were the same people who came and they campaigned with the former member of parliament. They said he was a good man then. Now they're saying that Ryan Pinder is a good man." And the young lady says she was very confused because if
Why? Because
if-
they were
if
both
the,
good
no,
men
No,
and
if the
both
former member of
PLPs?
parliament, after he left, after he resigned from the PLP, was such a evil, unappreciative person.
No, but who said that?
No.
Who
I
said
mean,
that?
I'm
Who said that?
No.
Who
He
said
was
that?
such a terrible
But-
guy.
No,
He
but
was
your
such a
leader said
terrible
that.
guy.
It's your leader who said that.
No.
Your leader.
Yeah, but
Your
he
leader
said
said
that. He
it.
said
No,
that
sir,
you all
no,
have-
no,
no,
sir.
no,
No,
sir,
sir.
you all have been campaigning in there
No,
for
sir.
many years.
No,
I
sir.
could
No, sir.
quote
Your
Mr. Terry
leader.
Christie as
Your
well
leader.
as Mr. Ingram
No, you can't
talking
quote Mr.
badly
Christie.
about Mr.
No,
Malcolm
you can't.
Adderley.
Like any good
You
Mr.
can't quote
Christie
Mr.
said it
Christie talking
at
badly
Doris
about
Johnson-
Mr. Adderley. No, sir.
Yes,
No,
at
no.
Doris
No,
Johnson
no,
High
no,
School,
no.
the
We
first rally
steered
called
clear
by
of
the
that.
PLP, I listened to Mr. Christie
No, the
saying
most he
that the
could say-
leadership will be good this time because we messed up the last time. We allowed it to happen.
Taking
And
collective
Mr. Christie
responsibility,
was the
but there
leader.
was no
But he's the
personal
unbiased
attack
person.
on Malcolm Adderley. There was no personal attack on
said
Malcolm Adderley.
No,
So he fought for the man.
There need not be a personal
He said he
attack.
fought for the
We're
man
talking
and
about
the man
the
left.
leader of the FNM said that Malcolm Adderley cashed out the seat. Isn't that what he said? He
That's
cashed out the
colloquialism,
seat.
man. Come on.
Well, what
Come on,
is
that's
that?
colloquialism.
What is that?
I don't think
That's
the PLP
colloquialism.
suggestions from
That's
either
colloquialism.
Bradley Roberts or Mr. Christie have been any different about Malcolm Adderley than the FNM. I don't think so.
No,
but anyway, gentlemen, let's move on to the next topic. I want to talk about the candidates. Now, there are some challenges. Dwayne Sands, we did a citizen's arrest last week. We paged Dr. Sands because he saw fit not to show up at the debate. We're not going to talk about that again. Michael Turnquest amply addressed that topic, and so did Citizens Review. Ryan Pinder, it was exposed that Mr. Pinder has never voted in the Bahamas. That is a challenge.
Why? Why is it a challenge?
He'll be the first MP in the history of the Bahamas that's never voted.
But why is that a challenge, though?
What do you mean, why is
Well,
it a
the
challenge?
circumstances of his life led to what it is.
Well, the question becomes, Mr. Pinder voted in the United States.
I don't
He-
know that he
he-
voted in the United States.
Well, we have
That's what the Minister
we
of
have the
National
evidence.
Security said.
We have the
on the
evidence.
public platform.
We have the evidence that Mr. Pinder registered to vote in the United States.
That's what
Whether or not he
that's-
carried out his ballot, he registered to vote in the United
that's
States.
what you say.
The next question is, so he's obviously not opposed to voting in an electorate.
Well, I don't
where
think
he
I
participates.
think I think you don't need to go to registering in the United States to say that he's not opposed to voting.
Well, my
Obviously, he's
question
not
is,
opposed
why
to
is it
voting.
the first time that he registered to vote in the Bahamas is 2008?
Well,
He's never participated in an election.
I don't know those facts, but what I'm saying is, how does that challenge a man's right to make a contribution to his country?
There's no challenge to making a contribution to his country.
Right.
The challenge is
So we
when that
agreed on
man
that.
wants to step to the next level and become the member of parliament.
Yes, but whatever those facts are.
Why participate in our electorate at the point where it has something to offer you and
No,
not
when
at
the
the point where you
circumstances of
participate?
your life, and I'm just doing this as a generality because I
Okay.
can't admit to your facts.
Okay.
Where it says, when the circumstances of your life make it possible to make the contributions as a Bahamian citizen, you do so. And all the facts will be before the Bahamian people.
Yeah, but-
and they
but-
vote up and down on it.
But one is the question. What is it that Mr. Pinder, I mean, what is it that he has to gain? He's
Gain
not
with what?
gain with running for by-election in Elizabeth for the MP position.
Well, the same thing that Dr. Sands has to gain.
Yeah, but
The
Dr.
ability to
Sands,
serve.
Dr. Sands has voted in the Bahamas, participated in
But
the
that
electorate, and
what
been
I'm saying is,
a part
but
of the
each
country.
person's life and circumstances are different.
Let me give you an example. If you're not in a constituency 6 months before you cast your vote, you can't vote in that constituency.
Well, I hear this. I hear this
Okay.
argument. Yeah,
And
again,
the
I
reason
don't
that is
concede that
because
argument.
because they suggest that
Yeah.
you have to be invested,
Yeah.
you have to be involved. That actually has to be where you
Yeah, there's a
live
residency
and participate.
requirement. Yeah.
If the argument is that Mr. Pinder was in the United States voting and or not voting, but registered to vote in the United States, participating there, invested there, then that's fine. But when you come to the Bahamas, you register in 2008, how you could figure you could be MP in 2010?
What do you mean? How can you figure? If
You
the
can run.
Yes,
That's
of
fine.
course.
I mean,
You have a legal right to do so.
Malcolm
but not-
Adderley ran, but
No,
we
but-
didn't get nothing out of that.
No. Again, you see, I think you're doing a disservice by some broad generalities here.
But
The
the
man's
question still
circumstances,
remains.
the circumstances of your life can take you to certain places.
Okay.
When the opportunity avails itself to service, people vote up or down on whatever the facts are of your life.
Okay.
And
but
he's a
those-
good candidate.
those are the
He's an
obvious-
intelligent man.
those are
He's
the
able to
obvious
provide
givens.
service. And he's been, and he
But
has the
there are a lot of
background for
Bahamians
it.
that are good candidates, intelligent men, able to
No,
provide
no, but
service
I
that
even
have
see.
actually
I even
voted
want to go
before.
beyond this, because this whole issue in the Caribbean, and I'm glad the Prime Minister of Barbados raised this issue now
Okay.
about looking at this whole citizenship issue, because these constitutions throughout the Caribbean have these same provisions.
Mm-hmm.
You know that the matter came up in Jamaica first. It's now being raised against the Prime Minister of Dominica, because as a child he got a French passport,
Okay.
and so they're saying that he has divided loyalties and all the
No,
rest of
I'm
it.
not talking about divided
No,
loyalties.
no,
I'm
no.
talking about a man who makes a decision after registering in a country for 2 years, where he is in fact a citizen, to run for member of parliament. Don't you think? I mean, survey the place a little bit. Go in the ballot box.
No,
vote
but
once.
he grew up in the country.
Yeah, but
he
that's
grew up
fine.
in the
So then
country.
why didn't he vote for
grew up
3
in the country.
elections?
No, he grew up in
He
the
had
country.
a chance to vote at 22, a chance to vote at 27, a chance to vote
I
at
don't
32.
know. Again, see, I can't admit to your facts, and
Yeah.
I won't admit to your facts. What I'm saying is, and at the risk of repeating myself ad nauseum, is that the circumstances of your life, they present various opportunities to you to serve and to provide service.
Okay.
When the opportunity arises, you provide it, and whatever the circumstances are, then you take the person as you find him,
Okay.
and he offers the service, up or down.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it about Ryan Pinder. We'll be on Dr. Sands when we get back from this break. This has been a heated debate thus far, and I'm sure you'd agree. I want to say thank you to all our viewers watching at citizensreviewtv.com and also in the living rooms all around the Bahamas. We have here on our show two spicy pundits today. The FNM's representative in the deputy chairman, the Senator Anthony Musgrove, and the opposition's representative in the famous MP from Fox Hill, Fred Mitchell. Gentlemen,
That's a good one.
I want to talk about Dwayne Sands.
A good man.
People are scared about Dr. Sands leaving the hospital. Somebody called in Lincoln Baines' show today, The New Nation, and say, man, listen, if Dr. Sands leave the hospital, he don't support national health insurance, and we gonna have to go to America to get heart surgery. How are we gonna afford that?
So you're trying to tell me, God forbid, if something happens to Dwayne Sands, the man, you're trying to tell me that there is no other facility, there's no other way that Bahamians will be able to have their medical needs met?
Well, listen.
Dwayne Sands is one man. He is not PMH. He is not the medical fraternity in this country.
But I pose the same argument to PLPs. I say, listen, if Perry Christie were to drop down there
God
today,
forbid.
God
Yes.
forbid,
Yes.
you got to find a leader anyway. So go find somebody who could lead the party, and people will support your party. But ain't nobody to follow that argument. So why are you telling me this argument about Dwayne
No,
Sands?
because the good thing is this. The same compassion, the same commitment that Dwayne Sands has displayed over the years, he is now bringing that at another level.
Okay.
And we're hoping that the results improve for us instead of just the one that we have. We're hoping that we can get just a slighter
You know,
majority,
but
but first past the post, one vote, be the victor. Be the
Majority of
victor.
one is all that counts.
But the point is, Dwayne Sands is prepared to provide service at a level that far exceeds the level he's performing at now.
He can be Minister of Health?
Only the Prime Minister can say who will serve in his
see?
cabinet.
Dr. Minnis says that's not so.
Yeah.
What is the
I mean,
PM can say that?
he didn't quite say that. I'm sorry, he didn't quite say that. He said I haven't heard it. That's what Dr. Minnis said.
Yeah,
I
but
haven't
see,
heard
y'all
that.
tell
no,
me
but the
y'all
point-
run a
I thought that was
leader-centric
great.
government.
No. Constitution says that.
All right,
That
all
the
right.
Prime
I give
Minister
you that.
determines who serve in his cabinet.
Okay.
You know, not
And
not,
y'all
not
don't
party
know.
officers. You know, see, this
And
is
you
what
know, Hubert don't do no consultation.
No.
He
See the
just
problem. This is
make
the
the
problem.
decision.
This is the problem, and I can understand why we continue to purport that misconception.
Y'all
that,
purport
no.
that
Listen.
misconception
No,
about
listen.
nobody else?
The government and Hubert Ingram as Prime Minister is separate from the Free National Movement and Hubert Ingram
In
as
theory.
leader.
In theory.
In theory.
In theory.
And in actuality.
Oh.
So
in
you suggest
actuality.
we differ
No,
there.
in actuality.
Okay.
The hat that I wear as a senator is completely different than the hat that I wear as the deputy chairman of the Free National Movement. But the point is this.
Well, we'll
A
see.
lot of the persons who I hear, in fact, I heard a young guy to the rally said, asked the same question, why is Dwayne Sands getting out of the medical profession to get into politics? He's my doctor. And I look at that young boy, I said, what you suffering from? He said, he's my doctor. But he started to spread that same propaganda that got some sort of traction. But that is so far from the truth. Dwayne Sands will be able to provide, and the intent is to be able to provide free of charge in various capacities,
Free of charge.
free of charge, in various capacities.
Giving away Dr. Sands'
No,
money
no,
now.
No, free of charge in various
I got
capacities.
you.
Let me
And we hope that results
I got you.
stand
Let me
as
ask you a
Member of
question
Parliament
based
for
on that.
Elizabeth.
Just practicality. This is a small island economy.
Yes, sir.
People got bills to pay.
Yes, sir.
Dwayne Sands, according to the
Declaration.
declaration, had some $1 million worth of debts that he has to service. He's given up a $450,000 salary to become a minister that makes no more than a full package of $100,000.
Right.
What going on there? Something strange.
Service the country sometimes.
Just like
no,
how
no,
Ryan
no, 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 no.
Pinder
Service
come
the country.
from America yesterday and gonna be
No. I got a better example.
wait, wait, wait.
Service the
A
country.
man
Hillary
worth
Clinton.
Ryan
a man
come
net
from
worth
America
58
yesterday.
million. 58 million. Net worth 58 million for a
Okay.
$66,000 a year job. What's going on?
Service the country.
Oh, yeah.
No,
yeah.
Hillary Clinton.
That's the
See,
other
no,
one.
no, no, no. See,
That's a better example.
we like to compare ourselves.
down
No,
a
no,
lot of
no,
those
no. We
examples.
compare ourselves to the United
58 million.
States. Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, has taken a salary cut.
Yeah.
Whenever you give service to country,
She's
Similar-
a carpetbagger like Ryan Pinder.
Similarly,
No,
that the sacrifice that Vincent Van der Poel is
Ryan
making to
Pinder's
give
right.
service our #1 industry.
Okay.
Similarly, to the service that Dwayne Sands will make. We are
No.
once you
Vincent
get in
Van der
public
Poel needs to
service.
run a hotel, though.
Once
Instead
we
of
get
being
in public
minister of tourism,
service,
he needs to run
it
a hotel.
requires you making some sacrifice. You
He needs
ask
to
the
invest
question:
in a hotel.
why does a man, and I'm an Anglican, become an Anglican priest,
Oh,
as
me too.
knowledgeable that as he or she may be? The point is, after many years, the salary they make, I think the ceiling for
Yeah, but
bishop
I
is
can understand
30,000.
that. I can understand
Once
that.
you
My
give
good
service,
That is a calling.
once you give
That's
That's
a
a
calling.
calling.
That's
politics
different.
is a calling.
No,
It's
no,
not a
man.
calling
Come
for you,
from
sir.
around here talking
It is a
foolishness.
calling.
It's
yeah.
not a calling
Politics
for you.
ain't no calling.
But
No, is it a calling for you, sir?
None of the Bahamas.
I know.
It is.
None of the
I'm
Bahamas.
afraid. I'm
It is.
afraid. At the risk
Tell
of
the people in Foxton,
no,
is it a calling?
At the risk of being a self-promoter, right? At the risk of being a self-promoter, Dwayne Sands is no Fred Mitchell.
Thank God. That is why Dwayne Sands is in Elizabeth and not Fox Hill.
Yes,
At
no,
the
God,
risk,
he's not in
at the risk
Fox
of
Hill.
insulting both of you, politics ain't no calling in the Bahamas.
It is.
And
It
if
is.
you call, you
It
call
is.
by something
It is.
green.
No,
and something that ain't no Jesus
no,
in
no.
that.
Don't tell your viewers that because calling,
Listen.
politics is a calling in the
I
Bahamas.
know two men who have a calling to the priesthood that are two men who have had a significant impact on my life. That is Ranfully Brown, and that is Bishop Cornell Moss. Those men have callings.
And so
Ranfully
does
Brown
Keith
runs
Cartwright,
church,
and so does D'Angelo Bow,
Yeah, but-
and so does Denrick
but
Roll.
Dwayne Sands and Ryan Pinder don't have no calling.
How do you know that? How well do you know Dwayne Sands? I don't know how well you know Ryan Pinder.
Politics
But
in this
Dwayne
country
Sands, it's a calling for
can't
him.
be compared
No,
to
no,
that.
he continues to want to provide
be
service
compared to that.
to his country.
And I think,
but
I
answer the
think
question.
I must,
But
I must speak up.
$450,000.
No, I have to speak up for
It's a
Ryan. 'cause I think
sacrifice. It's a sacrifice a man
is
wants to make.
is a good candidate. He's
Yeah.
really an excellent
so is Dwayne
candidate,
Sands.
and he will make a contribution.
I
to the
don't know
country.
that Ryan Pinder is that good of a candidate.
No,
I
he's a
can't
good
be
candidate.
sure.
He's
of
an
that.
excellent candidate.
I think Ryan
And
Pinder
he identifies
should
with
run
with
in the next
generation.
election after he votes.
Well, again, that's history.
yeah, I'm just saying. I
Nothing-
think Ryan
nothing
Pinder
you
got
can
to
do
vote
about
once.
that one.
Listen,
Prove that
Ryan
it's a
Pinder,
calling. Prove
I
that
know,
it's a calling,
I know
eh?
some 20-year-olds who vote once. They, to me, at least a little more invested in the Bahamas than Ryan Pinder. Ryan
No, he
Pinder
grew up
mystery
in the country.
elections.
No, he
yeah,
grew
but
up
he,
in the country.
Yeah, well then why
grew
he
up in the
ain't vote?
country?
And that's-
the point. No, I
No,
can't
that's a valid
admit
question.
to your facts. All I would say is this.
Well
right?
then,
again, is that
but
if you're
Mr.
outside
Pinder,
the
bring the
country-
camera this way. Bring the camera this way. Mr. Pinder,
that?
if you are listening to this show tonight and you have voted in the Bahamas at least once, come to Citizens Review next Thursday. The show is yours. We could duke it out on this same stage. If you, Mr. Pinder,
Pinder's at the
have
recount.
voted
He won't
once
hear your
in the
message.
Bahamas, he'll watch
No,
this
no, he
Thursday
won't
night.
hear- no, he won't
Thursday
hear your
night at
message.
9 o'clock. Come
He's
to
at
the
the
Citizens
recount.
Review. We'll talk it out next
He's at
week.
the recount.
But my question is, Craig Butler, the ghost in Elizabeth.
No.
He's
There was
the
only
other
one
ghost.
ghost in
Yeah.
Elizabeth. That was Dr.
That was
Dwayne
Dwayne
Sands.
He's the other ghost. Would Craig Butler
Why was
have
he a
won?
ghost?
Would he have
I'm
won?
not even going to
He has
respond
an
to why.
effect.
Why was-
You know,
why would he
I
have
He
don't-
has an
Dwayne
effect.
Sands
He would
is a
have
living.
an effect.
Dwayne Sands is a living man. He's no ghost, so I don't know.
No, he made a ghost
hey,
move.
hey,
He
no, he
made
ain't
a
gonna make a
ghost
ghost move.
move.
He was sneaking
The
nowhere.
ghost move.
He was in
He
Elizabeth
made a ghost
campaigning. He was Elizabeth campaigning, and that is why we
He
have
was missing in
been
action.
able to
Yeah.
get the
Missing in
results
action.
that we got.
Missing in
But
action.
let me ask you, Mr. Mitchell, would Craig Butler have won this election?
Well,
Craig
no.
Butler is said to have energized the base of Elizabeth Estates, particularly. That's polling divisions 2, 3, and 7. And that's where the PLP was expected to carry most of its majority and win the election. Even if they lost in the other divisions, which are said to have a little different class types. Would Craig Butler have carried it with his strength in Lizzie?
You know, I'll answer it this way. Vivian Naipaul says the world is what it is. The
Yeah,
result
but you
is
can't
what it
answer
is.
the ultimate question. You know, are we going to die tomorrow? Is the world coming to the end? We all die someday.
But you agree
I
with
don't
the
want to hear
word.
that stuff.
It is
Would
what it
Craig
is.
Butler
The kids
have
say
won
today,
in
it
your
is-
analysis?
No, it is what it is. And I think it would be idle to try and speculate on would have, should have,
No,
could
but we
have.
must speculate.
Craig,
That's what we do
Craig
here.
Butler would have been an excellent candidate. He
Okay.
happened not to have been chosen as a candidate. And we got a candidate who was equally as good a candidate. And, and that's the best we can say.
I don't know. I think there are people out there.
No,
who
you
would
can say,
suggest-
you might say, but
Yeah.
I can't say.
No, well, you
and I
can't
won't
say. Well, let me say it.
Yeah.
I think there are people out there that would suggest that Mr. Butler may have done better. What do you think?
Well, you could have said, well, he's the
Oh,
FNM.
I cannot comment on the inner workings and how they went about selecting their candidate.
Okay.
But all I can tell you,
He thinks Dwayne is better than both of them. But
Precisely
my,
the
my,
point.
my view is that Mr. Butler and Mr. Pinder is better than Dwayne Sands.
Okay, let me ask a question about your party's performance. Are you guys pleased with your parties? Y'all came just about the same, so you did about just as good a job at, some people would say paying people, some people would say throwing good parties, some people would say Burns House pull out all the liquor, some people would say all kind of fun stuff. That's hard for Burns House.
yeah, but I can't tell you, I can't comment on what some people say. I can tell you what actually happened in the Free National Movement. 2.5 years ago, we were unsuccessful in our bid to win Elizabeth. And as a result, fate had it that we are back at that stage again where Elizabeth
Not
was,
fate.
was afforded
Not
the
fate.
opportunity.
Fate is Hubert Ingram. Say fate.
Where fate had
That's a good one. How you spell fate? H-U-B-E-R-T.
No. However you want to define
Go ahead.
fate has it.
That's a good one.
That Mother Nature,
Yeah, right.
nature has it that
I'll
we
let you go
have
with
been
the
able to
story,
present to Elizabeth the opportunity to join the FNM. They accepted the message that we spent over the last couple of days spreading. Couple of weeks, sorry. Unlike the Progressive Liberal Party, as said by Malcolm Adley when he said that PLPs were in the area campaigning the day after May 2nd, 2007. We only had a mere 6 weeks. I think we have done very well. We have done
please,
very well
please,
in those 6 weeks.
please,
We have
please.
been on message. We
Yeah,
have
but
been
you all determined
consistent.
the time.
We have been
Please.
consistent
You all determined the
in
time?
spreading the message to the people of Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Our hope, because this is a
And
pre-recorded
the
show,
movie
is
analyzed
that
this.
when you're watching this, that we still remain the victor. But whatever the outcome is, it has been a positive thing for the Free National Movement because we are in a better position in Elizabeth. And when you have polling divisions like number 7, that we went from a deficit of 57 votes last time to a mere 6 votes. It means that the Payment people are connecting with the message of the Free National Movement, and we hope that that will continue to ricochet throughout the country as we prepare for the next general
Yeah, I
election.
said this last night. I think at least the FNM is to be credited with gaining ground in the constituency of Elizabeth. In 2002, the PLP beat them by some 1,000-odd votes.
Yes.
In 2007, the PLP beat the FNM by some 45 votes.
Yes.
And now it's a majority of
But
one
I thought
for
it
the
was your
FNM.
theory that the people who didn't show up beat both parties. thought
Yeah,
that
I
was
think
your
the people
theory.
who didn't
But
show
the man
up
is
spoke
entitled
most.
to, the man is entitled to 2 theories.
No. I think the people who didn't show up spoke most.
But we agree more on
But
the
the
latter.
FNM is gaining ground
Yes.
in Elizabeth.
No, I would say that the PLP, you asked that your question was are the parties satisfied? I mean, as far as the PLP is concerned, obviously, even in the unofficial count,
Yeah.
it would have been preferable for the PLP to be ahead. We went to vote on a bad register. We had the government steamroller in there. We were able to hold them off. The base is energized, and so I think we're in a pretty good position.
You think the PLP did pretty well?
In the circumstances, I
Let
think
me
so.
ask a question about the debate. In the great debate hosted by Wendell Jones, both candidates, there was a question in my mind particularly where Mr. Jones asked about progress in Elizabeth Estates. And Ryan Pinder went to talk about the great people of Elizabeth and the potential for small businesses and medium-sized businesses and a boom, which I don't think is realistic, but he said it. Dwayne Sands, I'm sure, would have ran on with the same bunch of stuff about how the future and the hope and all of this great stuff. Cassie Stewart even did it. Andre Rollins did it. One man stood on the stage, Rodney Monka, and said, "You're talking about Elizabeth Estates. Ain't no property available in Elizabeth Estates. Now, if you're talking about somewhere else for development, that's where development is." My point is the F&M and PLP candidate selling people dreams? What can Dwayne Sands as the MP or Ryan Pinder as the MP really do? I mean, Rodney Monka said that Ingram ain't gonna listen to the little fellas.
Yeah, well, I have a difficulty because I'm not sure that I want to elevate that commentary to a level of seriousness, because I think
Yeah, but it's a serious comment.
I understand, but he reduced the whole forum to the jocular, right? And
No, I think the PLP would say that, but I think it was a success for the Workers' Party.
No, but I am a PLP. That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah, that's
right,
fine.
Okay, so
yeah, I have to protect the citizens' view.
But I will tell you something.
No.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, you would say F&M, you would say that. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying,
so what I'm saying, no.
are your
my-
candidates selling dreams?
But I would say this about politics, and this is where I agree with politics being similar to religion, is that, both the politician and the church, you sell the future. You have to give people hope, and that helps to energize. The role of political leaders is the mass mobilizing function, to move people behind objectives, to help them get to where they want to be, to identify with their causes. So I'm not cynical. I keep throwing that appellation at you. I hope you forgive me, but I don't want to be cynical about it. It is an honorable thing to do, to be a politician.
Well, let me
it's
ask,
a difficult thing.
Does that mean that Citizens Review won't be very popular? Because we had 10,000 people.
No, well, you
watch
have your
our
role
show
to
from last
play.
week
No,
to
you
this
have your
week.
role to play.
Yeah, because we ain't selling no hopes on this show.
Yes, well,
I
I mean,
want
you have your
the
role, and politicians have theirs, and
Okay.
it's I'm not trying to denigrate any
But
profession.
the
what-
theoretical question for me is the theory behind politicians selling hope or giving people hope a good theory? Should we be giving them hope that may or may not exist? Should Ryan Pinder and Dwayne Sands suggest that they could change the future for people in Elizabeth if they can, in fact,
Well,
do
let
it?
me put it the other way. Would you have them sell despair?
No. They could go in the middle and tell what really happens. They could be
No.
like the ridiculous man, quote unquote, Rodney Monka, and say, "Ain't nothing you could do there."
No, I'm not going to call him ridiculous. I was just saying he reduced the forum to the level of the
I
jocular.
don't agree with that.
And my own view, though, is that that the business of politics is in fact selling hope. That's that's like if you're a priest, you must be born again. For a politician, hope is part of the list of things that he must or she must be involved in, because that's how you mobilize people behind objectives. And the society can only move if you can get people mobilized sufficiently behind an objective.
All right, well, the politicians had the last word today. We'll be right back after these messages. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is our last segment that we had last week called Citizens Arrest. This is the segment where we find a citizen in the community that we may have some challenges with as citizens, and that we may want to put behind citizens arrest because the police ain't gonna do it for us. Last week we were paging Dr. Sands because he was missing in action during the great debate. Apparently, there's one person in Elizabeth, just one, 1,501, that decided that Dr. Shands should win the election. This week, we have an arrest warrant out for another fellow. Now, let me ask you all a question. How you could figure you could come to this Bahamas, our Bahamas, and one day you spend all of your time in America, and the next day you want to run our country? How does this work? Somebody tell me how does this work. I have on this table, right here, proof of the absentee ballot registration for Mr. Ryan Pinder. And let me tell you something. We don't spread no propaganda on this show. Citizens Review, what we do on this show is we take the concerns of you, the Bahamian, and we bring it to light in a forum that don't play. Because on this show, we don't have no time for nobody foolishness. These are the absentee ballots for Ryan Pinder, who registered to vote in the municipal elections of Broward County in the United States of America. Now, let's put this in context. I went to school in the United States, Howard University, in the capital, Washington, D.C. And I have friends in the U.S. And my friends, most of them only just vote in the presidential election. But we have in this fellow, Ryan Pinder, a guy that votes for city council and things. From that time, you know. But somehow, he has never voted in the Bahamas. Now you tell me, because something wrong about this one. You tell me that you're eligible from 18. Mr. Pinder is 35. That means that he could have voted in 22 in when he was 22 in 1997. He could have voted when he was 27 in 2002. He could have voted when he was 32 in 2007. And the FNM and PLP just pay for you to come and vote. So, further to that, you can't tell me that your daddy is Marvin Pinder and you can't figure out how to get home for an election. And Mr. Mitchell said it on the show today, he spent most of his time in the Bahamas. And you use your father's name to legitimize you as a candidate, which we think is fine. I would use my daddy's name too. But you can't then say that you're not invested enough to come home and vote, or if you are home, to vote. And if you can tell me you was in America and was voting in America because that's where you were living and invested at the time, then don't come here in a couple of years and want to run for member of parliament. At least vote once. Just once. That's all I ask. See how it feels. Test this Bahamian thing out. We don't use no computer around here to vote, you know. In fact, this situation is so bad that I had to bring quotes from Tommy Turnquest. He got me quoting Tommy. Mr. Pinder, I can tell you like the police them say, sir, you lock up. You, sir, are this week's citizen's arrest. We don't have a problem with any Bahamian who has lived in the U.S. as a citizen coming to the Bahamas. But if you want to come to the Bahamas, and if you want to help build the country, do that. But what we do have a problem with is a man who can't find his way to the ballot box until he sees something to benefit for him. We tired of politicians who don't care about the Bahamian people. That's why we're in a by-election now. We don't have a problem with Americans or dual citizenship holders. But we do have a problem with someone who come from America yesterday and he ain't never vote and want to run people's country. And if you was in the Bahamas, then you should have voted. And I don't have a problem even with people who don't vote. If you don't want to vote, that's your problem. Now, you ain't saying nothing for our ancestors, but if you don't want to vote, that's fine. But most of the people who I know don't want to vote, don't want to be MP neither. Just like I tell Dr. Dwayne Sands, when he decided that he didn't want to come to the great debate, he could go someplace else. I have to tell you, sir, if you can't find yourself in the Bahamas to participate in the Bahamian electoral process, we have the right to ask, what is it that you have to gain? Why should your first vote be in the parliament as opposed to in the ballot box, just like everybody else? Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all our 10,000 viewers online each week at citizensreviewtv.com and our audiences in living rooms around the Bahamas. Thank you for watching this show. This has been Citizens Review. Good night.